Hello, I'm Lloyd Moyer. A few weeks ago, I got my hands on a couple of really nice logs of maple. And you see, maybe you saw a previous video of me roughing out some of the smaller pieces. Today, I thought I would make a video of me roughing out some of the larger pieces. These are about 12 inches in diameter, so they're not huge, but they're not tiny either. So it's just going to be, I'm going to mount them on a screw center. I'm going to do most of the work with a big bowl gouge, get them roughed out so that they can dry easily. And that's what you're going to see. So I start with the screw chuck in my largest chuck, and I'm just going to turn the lathe on and turn it up to as slow as it'll go. And then feed the blank onto the screw here. Oh. So what that means is that I don't have the screw chuck or the screw center in the right spot in the chuck. So I can tighten it a little bit more. There we go. That's the worst thing that happens during this video. We'll be in good shape. So I just lock the spindle down and then tighten it up by hand. I think since it's sitting here, I will bring the tail center up just for a little extra support. At least while I do this initial part. So I always spin the blank around once I have everything set, just to make sure there isn't anything sticking out or angled wrong that's going to hit the tool rest once I turn the lathe on. And I actually am going to have this angled a little bit. This is going to be a little more comfortable for me to cut the corner. And we'll turn the speed up until it starts to shake around too much. This is a pretty heavy lathe, so you can usually go pretty quick before you have too much trouble. And I'm just going to take some of the weight off the corners here to start with. This is my, I think it's a 1/2 inch bowl gouge. This is basically a shearing cut that I'm taking with this tool. I'm cutting with this edge, but it's faced up like this, so that the wood comes into contact with it at an angle. If you come in like this, too far open, you'll get a catch for sure, because the bevel is not supported, and so the wood comes in, and what it does is it digs in and pulls down, and bam, that's a huge catch. So be sure you have the tool handle down, and you're cutting with the side of the bevel, or I'm sorry, with the side, the side of the nose. I feel like this is the part of wood turning that gets people hooked. Big shavings, big, curly shavings. I'm up to a little over 700 here. RPMs, that is. I've heard a formula for how fast you should be turning, and I'm sure it makes sense. Notice I'm not going all the way through the cut here, because if you turn all the way through this cut, these fibers up here are not supported by anything back here, so you just tear them right out. So you go almost all the way out, and then you cut them from the other side. As far as speed is concerned, I've heard a formula. I don't remember what it is. I'm sure it makes sense. But my advice to you is turn as quickly as you're comfortable with. Obviously not faster than what your lathe can do as far as balance is concerned. But I was turning there at 7 something. But if you're not comfortable turning faster than 400, fine. It'll take you longer. You won't get as nice a cut if you're not going slow, but it's fine. Do what you're comfortable with. And the more you do it, the more comfortable you get. So don't worry about what I'm doing or what other people are doing. Worry about what you're comfortable with. Just going to put a foot on here real quick. So if something goes wrong and it comes off of the screw or something like that, I can still grip it. Just going to check the size. I don't want the size to be perfect here. I want it to be a little bit too big so that when the blank warps and moves, I can trim it down to the right diameter for the chuck. Of course, it still has to be small enough. That should be fine. Almost done this side. Make one more cut here. Just want to get all the bark off. Am I doing that? Yeah. Good. Now I'm going to go up to the top here, and I'm just going to even off this this top face. guess I better take that little nub off the bottom there. And then we'll be done with this side. Just going to take a quick cut into towards the center here to make sure that this is concave. Let's see if I can get this off of the screw without the wrench. Ugh, yes, I can. All right. The next one here is a little bit more out of balance. I have a little old bandsaw, and we often argue. I usually lose, but it didn't want to make these cuts very easily. So this is a little bit more out of balance than the last one. That's okay. We'll get through it. See why I spin it first? There we go. I don't know if you can, you probably can't see from this angle, but when you're rough turning especially, it's important to not stand directly in front of the work, meaning out here. I'm standing right here. You didn't see that, did you? That was a joke. It's important to stand out of what they call the line of fire. Something breaks off of the piece breaks in half, it's going to go straight this way or straight that way. So it's important to not be standing in those two places, especially when you're rough turning like this. Speeding up a little bit, up to about 630 here. Now that I'm pretty well balanced out, I can go up in speed even a little bit more. And I'm going to flatten off the bottom here and then put on a foot. That's a little too close. That's okay. I'm going down a little bit here, so. Then it's just about getting the bark off. I don't know how close I am to doing that. Oh, and I have this big chainsaw mark. That's mostly bark. So once I get through the bark, that chainsaw mark will be mostly gone. I don't generally do a whole lot of design features at this stage, as far as laying out shoulders and beads and rims and things like that. If you have something really specific in mind and you don't want to forget about it, there's nothing wrong with doing that. But when it comes time to finishing, that stuff isn't generally all that useful because you have to take it all away anyway once it's warped. So I'm just doing a basic bowl shape here. And that chainsaw mark was right there. That's gone. So we're good. So now I'm going to even off the top and then take this away. Okay. I want to make sure I'm all right here again. And I am. Good. Okay. My friends, we are in business. Let's take away that little nub. Do it with the bowl gouge since it's sitting here. If only they all went that easily. All right, let's move the camera. All right, so I'm backed up here a little bit. So maybe you can see a little bit more of what I'm doing rather than just what the tool is doing. I'm going to start with this by taking my depth gauge. This particular blank is about 11 inches in diameter, which is, if anybody is using metric, 280 millimeters or so. So that means 1.1 inches in, I want 1.1 inches of rim. So I'll just round that down to an inch. It's not going to be exact anyway, but and then also 1 inch in the depth. So that's going to be about there. Which means to get to that depth, maybe want to be about 1/4 of an inch from the base of this drill bit. You can tell you're going in straight if you're not shaking too much. So I'm not going in perfectly straight, but not too bad. Call that good enough. So now I think probably the best way to, especially if you're using a depth gauge, like I am, a depth hole, the best way to now hollow this out is to go find the bottom of your depth hole. Because once you have the depth figured out, the rest of it is easier. I'm trying to stay out of the way of the camera here. I'm usually a little bit more on top of the tool. You know, regularly when I'm doing this, I have the tool up against my side and I'm actually holding on to it much more up here towards the towards the bait, the ferrule, what they call the ferrule. I'm just trying to stay out of the way here. I think, yep, found it. Found the bottom of the depth hole. I'm going to move you to the other side of the lathe to really effectively get the base here, the wall thickness. I have to get a little bit closer, so. I don't know if it's as much fun to watch, but this kind of a cut is really fun to make. The only thing that would make it better is if it was cherry. When you're roughing out cherry like this, it smells like you're baking cherry pie, and it's just intoxicating. Unless you don't like cherry pie, in which case it's probably disgusting. I, however, like cherry pie. Maple still smells nice, but it doesn't smell like syrup or anything. It's shaking around like that because I'm starting to get hanging out a little bit far from the tool rest. Just need to bring it in a little bit. And that should help some. Nope, I'm a little bit too thick. I'm going to take a little bit more out of the bottom. It's important to, when you're roughing, especially a piece that's really wet like this one is, it's important that the walls are consistent, because when the bowl dries, the thinner it is, the faster it'll dry. It'll still warp, but it'll dry faster. So the thin part of the wall will be dry, but the thick part of the wall will still want to warp. And when the wood is wet, it's flexible. But once it's dry, it becomes inflexible. So the dry part, the thinner part, will then not be able to move and warp, and so it'll crack. And that is why, especially for rough turned pieces, an even wall thickness is important. You can see where the moisture is coming out of here already. This bowl is a bit shallower. We'll see how big around it is. I think it should be in the same neighborhood of about a foot. Yep, even a little bit bigger than the other one. This is 11.5. So again, I'm gonna, I guess I need my ruler here. I'm gonna mark an inch on here, and that's gonna be about my wall thickness. And maybe just for laughs, we'll bring the tail center up here. And I'll show you the other way that I sometimes will hollow out a bowl like this. I think that as I've done more and more of these, I tend to not like this way of doing it as much, which is why I was showing you the way I was just doing it, but I still, I don't know. I believe in showing it to you. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to start with a little cut to the outside. That's to the diameter that I want to make. And then I'm going to go back and I'm going to go along that again and make it a little bit longer. And you just keep doing that. I'm riding the bevel, but you have to be careful. You know, you get down there and you go a little bit deeper, but just don't go too deep. And remember again, the closer you get to the middle here, this, relatively speaking, the slower the wood is turning. So you have to take your time. You have to take a smaller cut and you have to go slow. It is a good way to get a lot of material out of the middle very quickly. And then you're left with that little thing, which you can just go, and off it comes. But I still have a lot of work to do, because now I have to go in and actually shape the inside. Just checking my thickness here, and I'm in pretty good shape. Think. Yep, that should be pretty good. They're just a touch deeper here. And then I'm gonna raise the tool rest a bit. You can do this with the gouge also. When you're roughing, I don't like to do it when I'm finishing. But it's a little bit more controlled with the scraper. Also very important when you do this kind of work, when you're done, be sure you clean off your lathe, otherwise it will rust. You can, you can see the moisture coming out of this piece. And the shavings are still very wet, so. So there they are. These will go, actually I've been trying the paper bag method. So I was going to put these in some paper bags with some shavings and leave them and see how they do in a couple of weeks. I could put them in a kiln also, but I'm not in that big of a hurry to get them. So we're just going to let them dry for a while. Take it slow.